5:02 p.m. Can we get members present, please?
Manufo Leah Inga Anuai is not present. Aaron Rashba,
Here.
Anthony Sujisaka,
Present.
Shaquille Ali,
Here.
Andrea Jordan.
Here. We're going to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. Can I have the Woodrow Wilson Elementary School assist us with this? Can we all rise? Place your left hand over your heart. Right hand.
Ready, begin. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We're going to move to the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to special presentations. This will be also by the Woodrow Wilson Elementary School, based on their visit to Elkis Ranch. Woodrow Wilson Elementary staff and students will share their learnings from this opportunity through their visit and the support from the 4RS grant.
All right. Good evening, JESD School Board, Superintendent Vidales. We have some fourth and fifth grade, a few fourth and fifth grade students from Woodrow Wilson who will be presenting tonight on our field trip to Elkis Ranch. I'll start by inviting Annette up. So a couple of our students here will be presenting about the hands-on learning and the environmental science and the educational field trip that was eco-friendly and how much fun they had. Okay, we'll start. Also, oh, sorry, Annette. So also, I'd also like to say that the field trip was funded by the 4Rs grant from the San Mateo County Office of Education Sustainability Department. And it was actually helped. I'd like to give a shout out and a special thank you to Mr. Aaron Rashba, who started the process with this grant. Prior to the pandemic, and we were able to extend it during the distance learning time, and we were able to use the grant to fund this field trip. So it was entrance for 3 classes for a third and fourth grade split class, and a fourth grade class, and a third grade class. That was Miss Lair, Mrs. Jones, and Miss Sanchez, who put this wonderful slideshow together for us tonight. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over to the kiddos. Let's see. Again, Annette, nice. Say this one first. My name is nice.
Hi, my name is Annette. Today I'm going to tell you about our field trip. One of my favorite things was that we got to interact with the animals and we got to see nature and we got to do a whole lot of things. We got to pet some goats and see a horse. I had a really good time at Elkis Ranch. Thank you.
All right, next we have Malika Radwan.
Good evening, members of the Jefferson Elementary School District Board. My name is Malika Radwan, and I am a student in the 3rd grade. I am here tonight to talk to you about the field trip that our class took to Elkis Ranch in December. I have to say it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. I had never been on a field trip before, and I was so excited to see all of the animals and plants that we would be learning about. And let me tell you, the ranch did not disappoint. We got to see so many different animals like lambs and chickens. It was so cool to be able to see them up close and learn about how they are taken care of. I also loved seeing all the different plants that were growing on the ranch. I had never seen anything like it before, and I learned so much. But I think the best part of the field trip was just being able to spend the day outside and explore. It was such a beautiful day, and it was so much fun. I also love that we got to have a picnic lunch on the ranch. It was so nice to be able to eat outside and enjoy the beautiful scenery. I really hope that we can go on another field trip like this in the future. I had such a great time, and I think it would be very beneficial for other students to be able to experience something like this. Thank you for listening.
Very well. Danielle? Okay, ready? Come on.
Can I have this?
Yeah, sure. Let me help you. Stand on the first one. There you go. Let me adjust it for you.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and today I'm gonna tell you about our experience in Alkis Ranch. First of all, we had a lot of fun there. We learned how plants are useful, and also we learned that how to use them, and sometimes we ate them. Also, we had the opportunity to eat in outdoors and see the beautiful nature. Also, we had the opportunity to interact with animals and feed them. Thank you.
Okay, Sian. Next we have Sian. You want the stool? Or
I think I do.
why don't you try?
Hello everyone, I am Sion from Woodrow Wilson Elementary and I'm in the 4th grade. Recently, me, 4th grade, and 3rd grade went to Elkis Ranch in Half Moon Bay, California. Tonight, I'm going to share 3 highlights from my field trip. Firstly, I enjoyed the scavenger hunt at the vegetable garden where I saw peas, broccoli, and I got my very own pea plant. Secondly, I got to brush the goats' fur. The goats were sitting still and very friendly while we brushed them. Thirdly, I got to feed the chickens and run rooster with seeds on the palm of my hands. It felt good feeding them. In closing, me and my friends had a great time at Elkis Ranch. Thank you.
Would you like, guys, why don't you all come up and then you can say the one thing? Best thing about going to Elkis Ranch.
The best thing about going to Elkis Ranch was that it was really fun, and I saw animals and plants I had never saw before.
I think the best thing was learning about the sheep's wool and how they color it with natural things.
I think the best part was learning about the plants in the garden.
I think the best part was petting the animals.
Okay, so that concludes our Elkis Ranch Woodrow presentation. I want to say an extra special thank you to our presenters up here. That's Cian Go, Daniel De Leon, Annette Hernandez, and Malika Radwan. So thank you very much. Again, I want to emphasize that these words, they came straight from the kids. This is straight from their own writing, and I just want to commend them on how articulate they were about their experience on the field trip. And again, thank you, Mr. Rashba, for helping us with the grant. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any comments from my fellow trustees or questions?
I'd like to make a comment. It is wonderful to see the Woodrow Wilson community here tonight. Thank you, Principal DeLonda. Thank you, students, for that tremendous presentation. Annette, Malika, Daniel, and Cian, you spoke beautifully about the ranch and what you learned from it, and you really brought it to life. It was, I had a great honor of serving on the site council for Woodrow Wilson for many years with Mr. Radwan in attendance tonight. And, we got to just experience what a tremendous community Woodrow Wilson is. And it gives me great pleasure to see that the grant that we worked on came to fruition. We were able to go, and I certainly hope that many more can take advantage of the incredible experience at Elkus Ranch. So thanks again for your presentations and for coming tonight.
Are there any other comments?
Yeah, congratulations on the, first of all, for getting the grant and on a great trip. Outdoor education and hands-on education is something that's very important for our students. They get physical education. It promotes good health. They learn how to be good stewards of our environment. They got to eat broccoli, which is my favorite vegetable. And you took my question. I only had one question for them, which was, what was the best part? What was the funnest part? So a very thorough presentation, and I'm very proud to be on the school board with such wonderful students as yourselves. So thank you.
Any other comments?
Sure, I'll make mine quick. I hope you got to see all of your favorite animals. Animals are a huge part of my life, so I'm really glad that you got to experience the outdoors and interact with those animals. And I can't wait to see what you all will do at Outdoor Ed in 1 or 2 years.
I just want to say thank you again to the students and Principal DeLonda for coming tonight, and obviously for the students speaking so eloquently. And honestly, if you had any nerves, I didn't see it. You guys did so well, and public speaking is going to take you far. Obviously, speaking about your experiences, I think is important, not only for others to hear, but also for yourselves, knowing that you are the ones there, you had those experiences, no one can take that away from you. And so I hope you get to see more animals and touch and eat more plants in your future. And because of the great things that you did and talked about today, we would like to pass out some certificates to you all. So I'm gonna have my fellow board trustees help me out with this. And so we'll call your name one at a time, and you'll come up to the podium, and we will congratulate you for being here tonight and for your presentation. Let's start from this side.
Daniel De Leon.
Malika Radwan.
Certificate of Appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation for Annette Hernandez.
And I have a certificate of appreciation for Cian Go.
Thank you again. We're going to be moving to communications. First is board member acknowledgements and commendations. I will start to my far left.
Accommodations. I mean, I would like to commend actually Miss Sandy McCulloch in the back right over there. I participated in, which I will talk about later, our JESD Housing Board first meeting, and she made it smooth, very easy to go to, and digestible for a first-time person. So thank you very much for making that really easy for me. I'm sure I have more acknowledgements, but I think I'll come around back later.
And I'm going to read something, and I'll give it to you later, Ms. Covere. So as we return from our holidays, so first of all, I want to acknowledge and commend all the faculty and staff in our district. So as we return from our holiday in honor of Dr. MLK Jr., I'm proud to be a governing board trustee here in our district. The mission of the Jefferson Elementary School District is to provide a high-quality education for all students and to prepare them for success in the 21st century. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s message of equality and social justice is directly aligned with this mission. By providing inclusive and equitable education to all students, our district is working towards dismantling systems of oppression and creating a more just society. The district's focus also on critical thinking, diversity, and character education are all tools to achieve this mission, and it aligns with Dr. King's belief that education is a tool in achieving equality. Furthermore, the district's commitment to closing the achievement gap and providing language support and cultural sensitivity are all actions that are in line with Dr. King's vision of ensuring that all students, regardless of their background, have access to the same opportunities and can reach their full potential. So my gratitude goes out to all of our wonderful faculty and staff that make this possible. Thank you.
Since we last met, I had the great pleasure of attending some athletic events and a holiday concert. I saw the holiday concert at FDR, and it was just great to see an auditorium full of parents, students, teachers, and staff all enjoying the music. It was the first such concert that they had since the pandemic. Beautiful music. The students did a wonderful job, and it was just great to see that going on. I've also had the opportunity to see some exciting volleyball games played by middle schoolers, and wonderful to see that to all the enthusiasm and athletic competition. So looking forward to enjoying more athletics, music, and all good things at the JESD schools. Thank you.
So I'll keep my comments brief. I know this is our first meeting of the new year, and we've just come out of some I don't like to use this word, unprecedented storms. And I know we had a specific site that had lost the classroom because of this. And so I just wanted to thank, our community for coming together and pivoting and doing what was needed so that we could still resume business as usual. I also wanted to give a shout out to Ms. Scott. I know the PIAC meeting was yesterday. I wasn't able to attend, but I saw the emails, and I hope that the meeting that we had yesterday was just as good as the first one that we restarted last year at the end. And obviously, I want to thank you, Trustee Ali, for bringing up MLK Day. I know that is something that is near and dear to our hearts, and as a district, with us having implemented our equity statement, it rings true to who we are. It's not just verbs or words on a paper, and so I hope to see us continue to build that out in all of our policies and continue to do what's best, again, for our students as we continue on with this school year. The next is superintendent comments.
Thank you. So as you've mentioned, we are just emerging from a period of at least 2 weeks, but probably closer to 4 weeks of rain, heavy rain. probably the most water we've seen in that period in quite many years. I want to thank Mr. Heath, who's in attendance here today, and his staff, who have mobilized across the district to get schools ready to open when we came back. We were so fortunate, and thank the board for your foresight in not bringing us back to school on January 3rd and waiting an extra week for other reasons. But, nonetheless, it was nice to have that week to get ready. And all in all, I believe at least 6 school sites had fallen trees. There's some damage across the district, some minor, some more major, but nothing that was devastating. We had ponding and puddling, big puddles, but no severe flooding caused by the rising waters. So we're entering a period of a dry weather window. So we're hoping to take advantage of this time to get to school sites, finish cleaning up, and starting some of the repair projects that require dry weather. So all in all, I think we weathered the storm well. And, I think all in all, schools, we have to thank, I suppose, the Department of State Architects and their requirements. Schools fared very well in throughout the county and received minimal, if any, damage. And homes seems to be, and restaurants and businesses seem to bear the brunt of damage. So we're happy about that. We can resume school normally.
Thank you, Superintendent Vidales. We're going to be moving on to general functions. First is our consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I wanted to ask, could we take off a couple items from the consent agenda? Item 7E, I believe. Let's see. And 9B.
Are there any other amendments to the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion with the amendments as stated by Trustee Ali.
I motion with the amendments as proposed by Trustee Ali.
Second.
I have a first and a second. This will be a roll call.
Mr. Rashba,
Aye.
Mr. Sudisaka,
Aye.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Jordan.
Aye. That's unanimous and approved. We're moving on to item 7E, the appointment to Citizens Oversight Committee. The administration recommends the initial appointment of Dong Tran to fill the vacancy of parent representative active in PTA to the measures I, U, T, and J Citizens Oversight Committee.
So I asked to take this off so that we could formally congratulate and welcome the new employee and just talk a little bit about the importance of citizen oversight committees. This helps to keep us, to hold us accountable and to also provide the way for the community to have a voice and be heard on important issues that we tackle on this board. So we don't want to just take this lightly. So we thank you for your willingness to serve on this committee. I'm not sure, is she here tonight?
Oh, Mr. Trent, no, he's not here.
No. Mail. Okay, sorry.
He's willing to come, and maybe he will come when the Citizen Oversight Committee presents their annual report. So we'll see how many of them can join us so you can meet him. But he's been an active parent for many years at the Westlake PTA.
Oh, okay, great.
And it's great to have a father on the PTA. That's why I see your assumption that that he was a mom, but he's a great dad. And Mr. Rushba is also in that line of involved fathers. So that's wonderful.
So thanks once again.
Are there any other comments or questions on this agenda or item? I just wanted to say also thank you to Mr. Tran for doing this. I think, as you said, he's a bit of a unicorn, and we truly do appreciate it. We want our community to be as involved as possible. So if there are no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
I will move to appoint Dong Tran to the Citizens Oversight Committee.
I second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 That was unanimous. Moving to item 7G, Educational Housing Corporation bylaws. The administration recommends approval of the Jefferson Elementary School District Educational Housing Corporation, EHC, bylaws agreed upon by the Board of Directors at their January 10th, 2023 meeting. Are there any comments or questions from fellow trustees? Seeing as there's not, I will entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the Educational Housing Corporation bylaws.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion was approved unanimously. Moving on to 7H, a JESD, Educational Housing Corporation conflict of interest. The administration recommends approval of the Jefferson Elementary School District Educational Housing Corporation conflict of interest policy. The purpose of this policy is to protect the Jefferson Elementary School District Educational Housing Corporation's interest when there may be a possible conflict of interest with a housing corporation's board member. This policy complies with legal requirements regarding conflict of interest. Are there any comments or questions from fellow trustees? Seeing as there's not, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the conflict of interest policy for the School District Educational Housing Corporation.
I second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Moving to item 8D, Expanded Learning Opportunity Plan, Phase 2. The administration recommends approval of Phase 2 of ELOP. That begins the infusion of ELOP to support our ACES sites with enhanced enrichment, as well as funding our non-ACES sites with full after-school programming to ensure all JESD students have equitable access to after-school care. We are building a rich, comprehensive program utilizing both funding sources to offer our students and families a comprehensive, safe after-school curriculum. Are there any comments or questions from fellow trustees?
I just like to say how I'm very happy to see this on our board agenda. As we know, just being in the Bay Area, many families, especially in Daly City, are working multiple jobs. And to provide those after-school care programs, when I was at one of our school sites, we could not offer it to all students. And it was detrimental to some of those families. They had to find ways to get their kids picked up. They had to find alternative means, or someone they had to pay even more. So I think it's vital that we are offering this.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question. I know that there's a issue countywide, probably statewide, with community-based organizations being able to staff programs. And I know it was stated at one of our previous board meetings that we did have students who were not able to, they were on waiting lists for some of our programs because of the community-based organizations not having enough staff. Can we get a quick update on that situation?
Yeah, that continues to be the case. This year's focus has been more on establishing the structure of the after-school program, specifically at sites that hadn't typically hosted one, and expanding enrichment opportunities at the school sites that have had after-school programming. And we're hoping at some point the economy, it's a weird hope to have, but that the economy shifts enough that folks would be interested in taking on a part-time position. And we've worked with our after-school community-based organization providers to commit to them to offer like summer opportunities so they can hire individuals for 12 months. And they did we piloted an inter-session camp that first week of January at one of our school sites. We'll be doing another inter-session camp at another school site in February. These different work days support their recruitment efforts to say we can hire you for a 12-month period, so many days in the course of the year. So we're trying to work with our partners to get them to be able to hire workers, but it is difficult to offer after school care to every student that requires one, and certainly every student that wants it. So we're working hard at trying to make that a reality.
All right, thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions? I guess I have a question and also a comment. So I know, this is not on the agenda, but it's similar to this conversation of after-school programs. I know that this year we had, for certain sites, they had different programs than they had in the previous years. And I know that we may have had a conversation, I don't know if it was publicly, around why that is. And obviously with this enrichment, I guess my thought process is the kids get this great enrichment until the end of the school year. And the next year, if they get another program, then we have to implement the enrichment program. What does that look like to, try to fix the disruption of what they may have already been getting, and then they get something new, they get a new after-school program, new teachers, new counselors, and how can we work to keep it consistent?
That's always the goal. You know me, Mr. Stability. I don't like things to change too often, too quickly. But sometimes change needs to happen. Sometimes a provider is not able to provide the level of services that we need at the sites where they had signed up, and so they step back, or we ask them to step back, and we pick up another site, another provider. And I think currently where we are, I don't anticipate any changes in providers for the next school year, so that we have this foundation of this year to build upon for the next year rather than starting over.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And then my comment is, as a parent in the district, I'm going to actually report out my daughter. She is in one of the after-school programs. And in the beginning, some of the issue was obviously with just having enough site people to help with implementing a lot of these programs. And so once that happened, she came home one day and she said, "We did African drumming." And I'm like, what did that entail? And I will just say that the kids are really happy with the enrichment programs. They are not just going in and doing homework and then outside playing games that have been thought up by them. They know that they're going in, they know that they're going to get something that's different from just their regular day to day. And I think that they look forward to it, at least my daughter does. And so I'm really happy to see this on the agenda. And I hope that we can continue to build upon, like you said, because I do think that the students are really benefiting from it. So with that being said, I will entertain a motion.
I motion to approve the Expanding Learning Opportunity Plan Phase 2.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. The next item on the agenda is 8E, presentation on California School Dashboard and Local Indicators for 2022-23 school year. Educational Services Department will present on the California School Dashboard and Local Indicators.
Good evening. So you're getting a copy of the presentation and also my speaking notes, because there's a lot of information, and I know at our last presentation, that was a request.
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Right, so I'm presenting on the California Dashboard. The California School Dashboard is one part of California's comprehensive accountability system for schools, districts, and county offices of education that reports performance and progress in 13 different areas, 6 state indicators and 7 local indicators. The COVID-19 pandemic affected education services and student learning worldwide. In California, the pandemic also interrupted the statewide data collection, assessment, and accountability systems. The last dashboard was produced in 2019, reflecting data from the 2017, 2018, and 2018-19 school years. The 2022 dashboard is a restart of California's accountability system. Since the 2022 dashboard is a restart, the performance of a school, district, or county office of education establishes a new starting point against which future improvements can be gauged for districts, schools, and student groups. The 2022 dashboard provides valuable information to educators about how the pandemic affected student learning, student engagement, and differences in outcomes for student groups. The 2022 dashboard data will be used in conjunction with other local data on student performance and progress, such as progress reports, student work, and teacher feedback. The combination of state and local data provides educators with a more detailed picture of strengths as well as areas for opportunity. So prior to the pandemic, district schools and student groups received performance colors on the dashboard: blue, green, yellow, orange, red, where blue indicated the highest performance and red indicated the lowest performance. Performance colors were determined based on a combination of status, which was the current year's performance, and change, which was the current year performance compared with the prior year performance. Since 2022 is a restart for school and district accountability, only current year performance, the status, is reported on the 2022 dashboard. So no performance colors have been assigned in 2022. In 2023, performance colors will return for all state indicators. Instead of performance colors, new cell phone bar graphics will represent the 5 status levels for 2022. Very low, low, medium, high, and very high. For all state indicators, more shaded bars indicate a stronger performance, and fewer bars indicate that attention is needed. I'm missing a slide in there. A note about chronic absenteeism and suspension rates. Those 2 indicators, unlike indicators where higher rates are desired, like academic performance, lower rates are desirable for chronic absenteeism and suspension rate. To reflect this difference for these indicators, the labels on the cell phone bar graphics are reversed to indicate the goal of low rates. And I had a slide in there, I don't know, it disappeared. So the 2022 dashboard includes the following state indicators: academic performance in both English language arts and math, chronic absenteeism rate, English learner progress, graduation rate, which does not apply to us, it's high school, and suspension rate. Oops, sorry. So academic performance contains 2 measures: English language arts literacy and mathematics. These measures show how well students are meeting grade level standards. They are based on student performance of the Smarter Balanced summative assessments and the California alternative assessments, which are taken each spring by students in grade 3 through 8 and grade 11. So the 2022 dashboard shows that JESD displayed low status levels in both ELA and math. This year, to improve, we are focused on the following key areas: developing stronger district-wide collaborative teacher teams to enhance their ability to share best practices across schools, administrating additional standards-based assessments to ensure students receive targeted and timely interventions, and utilizing the Universal Design for Learning guidelines to ensure our classroom lessons remove barriers for accessing grade level standards for all students. The chronic absenteeism measure shows how many students were absent for 10% or more of the instructional days they were enrolled to attend. For example, if a student was enrolled to attend 180 instructional days and is absent 18 or more of those days, the student would be considered chronically absent. Students who are chronically absent miss out on important classroom instruction. Capturing this information in the dashboard allows parents and educators to see if chronic absenteeism is a problem at a school or across a district. The 2022 dashboard shows that JESD displayed high status level for chronic absenteeism. 19% of our students were chronically absent last year and missed at least 10% of their school year. We know that when students do not attend school, they do not learn. So to improve this metric, staff continue to prioritize building positive relationships with students and their families. Staff routinely follow up with families about attendance through multiple means: emails, phone calls, in-person meetings, and home visits. Our program director of student services and her team connect daily with our most at-risk families and provide them with needed support and resources. This includes, but is not limited to, access to transportation, food, clothing, and family counseling. Administrators schedule weekly student support team meetings to build collaboration between staff and families to improve the learning experience for their students. Staff collectively encourage and celebrate family involvement and engagement through both school site functions and district committees. Proficiency in the English language is a first step for students to do well in other subject areas such as reading, writing, mathematics, and science. The English Learner Progress Measure looks at progress that English learner students are making toward achieving English proficiency. Each spring, English learner students take the English Language Proficiency Assessments for California, or LPAC, which measures how well they know and understand English. Results from the LPAC are used to calculate the English Learner Progress Measure. The 2022 dashboard shows that JESD displayed medium status level for the English Learner Progress Indicator. 55.3% of our English learner students made progress towards English language proficiency last year. This year, we are building upon our success from last year by focusing on the following initiatives. An additional 10 ELD teachers have been hired to provide designated ELD lessons across all district elementary and middle schools. Our program director of teaching and learning continues to provide professional development to support the implementation of our systematic ELD curriculum materials. We have implemented Elevation, an online program management and teaching platform that empowers teachers and administrators with tools to enhance instruction. Both systematic ELD and Elevation are in use across all district schools with a specific focus on student engagement strategies. Teachers are able to observe one another on the implementation of these strategies and are actively encouraged to participate in the observation feedback cycles. The suspension rate measure shows the percentage of students who are suspended for at least one full day during the school year. Students who are suspended from school miss out on important classroom instruction. Capturing this information in the dashboard allows parents and educators to see if there's a suspension problem at a school or across a district and whether certain student groups are suspended more than others. Just as a note, a student is counted as suspended in the suspension rate only once, regardless of multiple suspensions or multiple days of suspension. The 2022 dashboard display shows that JESD displayed low status level for the suspension rate. 1.3% of our students were suspended last year. We are committed to keeping our students in classrooms where they can focus on learning. This year, we will focus on continuing our practices of PBIS, SEL, and restorative justice practices, as the success of those initiatives is evident in our low suspension rate. Some districts and schools will be identified for targeted support due to low student performance across multiple measures. This technical support is provided by San Mateo County Office of Education. It involves dedicating resources to the district and schools to work together on improving systems and conditions. So this chart provides you with the status levels for each of our student subgroups across the 4 measures. To be eligible for targeted support, the same student group must meet the criteria in 2 different priority areas. So very low in academic performance, very high in chronic absenteeism, or very high in climate and conditions. So when we look across our student groups, we can notice that our students with disabilities, students who've been identified for special ed services, have status indicators of concern in both academics and attendance. Therefore, JESD has been identified for targeted support due to the same student group not meeting the criteria in the 2 different priority areas. We will be meeting with San Mateo County Office of Ed within the next few weeks to learn more about the supports they have available to us as we work to find root causes and embark on improving the school experience for all students. We look forward to engaging with all educational partners in a continuous improvement cycle discussion, as we know that progress forward takes collective action. So in conclusion, our district is making positive progress. To ensure student growth, we locally monitor data as it is collected for up-to-date information on student attendance, achievement, and engagement. Over the next several board meetings, the Ed Services Department will share data collected from our local academic assessments and from our student panorama survey. We have been pleased by the growth students have shown to date. There continue to be many students who need additional support to learn what is expected for their grade level. We have made the following efforts to support student learning, which include, but are not limited to, hiring additional ELD teachers, providing access to a multiple of online intervention platforms that students can access from both school and home, supplementing curriculum materials that enhance our English learner programs, leading site-based professional development on UDL guidelines, and structuring district-wide teacher collaboration teams to share best practices across all schools. Are there any questions?
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad to see that we have made some improvement. I have a question though about the students with disabilities. Have you looked at the dashboards for other school districts that are close to here and seen, what their strengths and weaknesses are? And do you happen to know if other districts have that same level of support needed for students with disabilities?
I have not looked at other districts yet.
I have had informal conversations with some neighboring school district superintendents, and this particular student group is one that many school districts are also finding that they need to pay extra attention to. Students with disabilities are not our most severely impacted students. Those students take the CA, the California Alternative Assessment. These are students that most likely have some learning disabilities where they get extra support from a support teacher, might get some speech and language support, maybe any other of the various disabilities that keep them in the general education classroom. They qualify to take the general education CASP. And yeah, it is also a group of students that sometimes have more tendency to become ill or miss school more frequently because of different appointments. And so, one thing that was true last year, and I think continues to be true this year when I look at some of this data, is the isolation periods that are being required for being testing positive with COVID. We started out last year and what the isolation period was 14 days. Yeah, for the first few months of school, and then it dropped to 10 days, and now it's 5 days. So we are still seeing students missing chunks of the school year due to COVID, and also some students get reinfected various times throughout the year. So then once they hit 18 absences, they trigger this measure. This year in particular, because we had RSV, which impacted our youngest students, flu and COVID, we may see, I hope we see improvement in chronic absenteeism, but the mandated absences, it wasn't, with COVID, it's not. When you stop having symptoms, you can come back. And I think some of you've had kids, they're better on day 2. But they needed to be out for the 14 days or whatever the guidance was at the time. So we're hoping to see improvements. Certainly, I think we will see improvements in those academic measures, because from here forward, it'll be, do we reduce the distance from standard versus the status? You're just very low. So though I think we will see improvement in most of our student groups to reduce the distance from standard that they find themselves, that group found itself in last year.
Okay. All right, thank you. Because I know Trustee Rashba and I are on the high school district and other local elementary school districts committee. So that could be something that we talk about there. And also, if we have any more meetings for the San Mateo County School Board Association, we should be talking about these things when we get together formally and informally. So thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
I have a question. So I'm really glad to see on this dashboard some, positive signs, our low suspension rates and the progress that our English learners are making. But, certainly see some cause for concern with the absenteeism rate and the academic performance as low in both areas. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about the goal setting process for the district. And this could be a factor of my being very, very new. This is my second meeting, but I wanted to hear about how the district decides to set goals going forward and then works to enact them.
We talk about the LCAP. I'm sure you've read through the LCAP, right? That's our 3-year plan that helps us identify where we were at the beginning of the plan and where we need to head. Academics is absolutely a goal, and making sure that our students are accessing the curriculum. We've had, I think, a steady rate of achievement over the past decade. So trying to really dig down deep and figure out why. And I've been fortunate to be able to visit in classrooms, and there's a lot of great instruction going on and engagement. And so I think asking, more questions around the why and where the gap, why is there a gap in student learning when our teachers are working really hard and doing some really great work. So I think all the data that we collect helps inform our practices, and it aligns to the district priorities that we established at the beginning of the year with UDL, the teaming, and our ELL work. All the work that we've done this year within our administrative team that they have then led on their school sites around universal design for learning really is to look at our lessons, identify barriers that students might have when they walk into the room, how to remove those barriers so that they can access the grade level standards. It's just an ongoing work in progress. I'm confident that we're going to see some gains this year. I think especially after Superintendent Vidalis spoke to the challenges over the past several years with COVID and absenteeism, it did not help, right? If you're not in school, it's really hard to learn. And I think last year in particular, when you're mandated to be out for an extended period of time, it's difficult for everybody, for families, for the teachers, for students to fill that gap when they're not actually physically in class.
And something to add to that, Ms. Scott had mentioned the LCAP is our guiding mission statement and plan for curriculum. We are currently on our second year of our LCAP out of a 3-year process, and next year would be the last year. And through the development of our LCAP moving forward, this could be something that we also look at and figure out ways to address different actions within the goals that we've set to meet higher standards. So yeah, like in the process of building the budget and also having a 3-year plan, we'll be building another 3-year plan starting next year. So that's something to look forward to.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Well, you just answered one of mine, so I have 5. So my first question, I'm focusing on the chronic absenteeism. So it's reported that 19% of our students are chronically absent. Assuming we have a district of 3,500, that means there are at minimum 700 students who are chronically absent. And I know one of the parts of your plan was the director of student services or Team Connect daily with most. I was just wondering what the staffing of that team looks like and if they will be able to reach 700 students.
I think that number is inflated from last year in large part due to COVID. I know Stephanie Martinez, our program director of student services, works on a continuous basis to connect families with the supports and resources that we have available for them. I know on our sites, our administrators and teachers are doing everything they can to engage families, to remind them how important it is to bring their students to school. It's just an ongoing work in progress. I think our families are strained. They've also gone through a pandemic and are trying to do what they can to make ends meet. So it is a complex problem that I think everybody is fully engaged in helping to problem solve.
And I'd encourage board members, please visit the California dashboard. If you look across the county and you look at this measure in particular, we are among the lowest rates in many school districts, 19%. We're certainly well below the state's rate and below the county-wide rate as well. So, it was 700 students. Easily, we had more than 700 students get COVID last year. So that's makes up for some of the absences, but not all. We've been really communicating to families, reserve your absences for illness only. Make your dentist appointments, your doctor appointments for after school or during school breaks. Don't keep your kids home because you couldn't, you needed to take care of an errand, bring your kids to school. So all of these tips is we have to continually remind our families. We also realize, as Ms. Scott mentioned, that the families are strained as well. And so I just need to keep my kid home. We have to take care of this errand and then that errand, and then we have to drive across the bay. It's not there's just no way I can send my kid to school today. And it's hard for families to manage these multiple demands on their schedules. So trying to work, and those are the students that our student support services team meet with. They get lists of students and how many absences they've had. I'll say, well, we know this student has had COVID, so let's take away -5 on their absences. Are they still high priority? Probably not. Let's meet on with some of the families that our absences are getting higher and not necessarily due to an illness.
Can I get in on that?
If I can just make, just one comment really quick, as well as what Mr. Vidalis and Ms. Scott had mentioned last year too, if a family member had COVID, anybody in the household had to stay home for that period of time. So that increased it, even if the student themselves didn't. And in terms of what Ms. Martinez and her team, the counselors do, she does weekly home visits. I know administrators as well do that. So they're really actively getting out there and trying to get those students, especially our ongoing truancy students into class.
I wanted to get in on this. Do we still have that software that we purchased and the secretaries use? Yes. Okay. Do you know about that?
I don't believe. Well, what's the name of it?
Can you explain it to the new trustees?
We have two. We have our student information system, which every school district has, to be able to easily tabulate, number of absences and look across a school site. We also have a different program called Data Zone, which has, at a glance measures for chronic absenteeism. You click on the number and it tells you the students' names. Tells you the students who are chronically absent, who are in danger of being chronically absent, not quite yet. As of today's date, like we're getting close to the 100th day of school. So anybody who's got 10 or more absences as of today is considered chronically absent, and on track to continue being chronically absent if no interventions made between now and the end of school.
And just to be clear, the SIS we use is Synergy, still correct? Okay. All right. So I'll move on to my next question. This is very on testing. So one of the biggest reasons scores are low throughout the state usually tends to be that students don't see the CASP as an important measure or as it measures to the future. What are some of the things that we are doing to help these students see that this test actually is important and that their data actually does matter?
I think it's our role as adults to make sure that students are focused on the learning. And if we're doing the right job and making sure that they have access to the grade level standards, the data will reflect that. I would caution us about putting a lot of focus on students and the data itself, because it takes the focus away from what they're learning, right? And we want them to develop a joy of learning and not so much a focus on where they land in the data. That's our role as adults, I think.
And I think that's why I bring it up. Is just we're stuck in this middle ground between do we give high quality teaching or do we teach the test? And that's
so the test assesses the state standards, right? So if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is teaching the state standards, which is what our curriculum is based on, our curriculum materials, then the students will perform well on an assessment. They're not separate from each other. It's not an either or. They're connected. I think there are test taking skills that are handy to help students. I think though with Common Core, it's much more higher level thinking skills rather than, in the old days like pick C, bubble and C all the way down if you don't know. So I think it's a better assessment, more accurate for the generation of students that we're teaching.
Thank you. All right. I'll move on to my next question. This one is about EL performance. So the middle schools in this district have moved from having two English block periods to one. So how do you predict that this will benefit the EL students that are low performing?
So our EL students, remember, have an additional ELD period. So while everybody was reduced to one period of language arts, remember that was in response to the federal program monitoring process and identifying a need for EL students to have access to the full core curriculum. Our study sync, right, our ELA materials provide additional supports within that curriculum for our ELD students. And then we also have the additional one period designated ELD. I think we've been really focused this year on implementing strategies across all content, across all grade levels to improve the ability for our English language learners to access the curriculum through higher engagement strategies.
All right, and then I promise these are my last two questions. All right, and then we go to suspension rates. So since the dashboard is based on numbers and then also it measures improvement as well, how are we going to improve on 1.3% suspension rates?
Well, I can answer that. Like when you have either a very high academic level or a very low suspension rate, if you maintain, you keep that. You don't have to necessarily improve that. So same would be go for a school that has 95% of their students performing at grade level. They don't need to get to 98 to get a blue. They can stay at 95.
And then my last question is, part of the improvement is restorative justice practices. I'm just kind of wondering what are our restorative justice practices we currently use and what are we exploring this year?
So kind of the bank of practices, right, starts with effective language, the community circles, restorative conferences, etc. Working to really build the community within a school setting using community circles. That really is the foundation. If you don't feel connected and feel a sense of community, you don't have anything to repair when harm has been created. So that really is the focus of schools, and I see it happening in a lot of areas and some not so much in some other areas. There's opportunities for growth. But reconnecting with our students and helping them understand one another and build those connections amongst a class with the teacher, I think is really foundational for those restorative practices. We started this year for students who have made some poor choices. We have a panel that comes together of administrators, the parent with the student comes in, and we go through the restorative questions and help them to reflect in front of the adults and own their mistakes that they've made and offer ideas they have to repair the harm. The parent is also involved, and it's a very powerful process. A lot of healing happens in that work as well. So just continuing to build people's capacity to implement those practices across all our schools, mainly our middle schools. That's where we see, right? Yeah.
All right, thank you for entertaining the educator.
Sure.
I have another question for you. When you look at the dashboard and, call the data, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of the English language progress. I think that's a subgroup that is always in flux, right? It's different students because students become redesignated and are no longer part of that group. So the fact that that was one of our highlights, our bright spots, is something to be really proud of. I know that the district has worked in that capacity with with that group of students for a long time. And I think our focus last year and continuing into this year on improving their experience and making sure they still have access to all of the core programs, in addition to access to curriculum that best meets their needs, makes me feel proud, right? It's learning the language in the country that you live in and being able to use it in a way is going to be really important for them. It's a lifelong skill. That feels good.
I just wanted to say thank you, Ms. Scott, for this presentation and the thorough notes. I know that at the last LCAP presentation, I was very vocal about wanting more information and not being thrilled about the results that were shown. And so I just appreciate you listening to that feedback and coming here very prepared to answer all of the questions. I also want to thank my fellow trustees for the questions that were asked. They were really relevant and pertinent to the discussion. I actually had a question around chronic absenteeism. Is what tardies constitute an absence? Is it 3? Does anyone know?
That's not a microphone, that's a cup. It is 3 of at least 30 minutes or longer. Under 30 doesn't count as, but that doesn't go into the chronic absenteeism measure. That only goes toward the definition of truancy. So you can receive a truancy letter if you have 3 or more unexcused absences, as well as 3 or more long tardies. I don't think that you can mix and match, like 2 unexcused and 1 long tardy. It has to be 3 or more of each.
Perfect. That's helpful. And I also wanted to talk about the correlation between chronic absenteeism and maybe the academic performance, right? And so I know I missed a day of school way back when, and I cannot for the life of me figure out how to do quotients. If anyone asks me, I'm like, I don't know. I missed that day of school. And so, so it is kind of this balance of, well, I know parents, you can't get your kids to school, or, oh, I know they're sick. However, you know, long-term effects of that, it can really set a child back. I also think through this, with COVID and the 10-day period, I remember we had a conversation around, well, how do we still, well, obviously we can't stop the absenteeism, but can we ensure that they're at least getting the academic support, the homework or whatever that is? I know emails have gone out of like, hey, if a student is out, a parent or a family member can go to the school and pick up that work. But if they have to be out for, let's say, a 5-6 day period because of the quarantine, is there something that we can do? Because I know it has to be longer for us to actually have work study. Is there something we can do to encourage or at least get the curriculum in front of them so that they're not missing those 5 days, because that could make or break the testing?
Yeah, it is, as you mentioned, difficult to get what you've missed in terms of instruction. I mean, I'm sure you have seen material on quotients a variety of times since that day you missed, and you still have a hard time with it. So I think the goal is to try to get kids the first time. And the other piece that is not discussed here is that, our staff were subject to some of the same attendance procedures. So not only might students have missed 10 days, but then their classroom teacher might have missed the next 10 days. And so that's 20 days of irregular instruction, regardless if they had a work packet or not. And last year we were trying to get work packets out to our students to get them, to not fall so far behind. But, one student missing a day of school in a classroom of 20 sets back the whole class, because the next day the teacher is going to try to catch that student up. And it just has ripple effects. And so we're really trying to emphasize be absent only when absolutely necessary.
Thank you. This was a really great presentation, and I look forward to the future of our LCAP presentations. Thank you, Ms. Scott.
And President Jordan, if you need a subcommittee on quotients, I can lead that for you.
Oh, that's right. Be careful what you ask for. Okay. The next item on our agenda is item 9B, contracted services agreement, Varsity Technologies. The administration recommends approval of a contract with Varsity Technologies San Francisco for Cisco SmartNet license renewal necessary to support our network infrastructure for an amount not to exceed $121,963.51. Is there any questions?
Yeah, I asked for this to be taken off so that we could get a little bit more information about this service and the status of our network infrastructure.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ali, first of all, for the heads up that was going to be your question. It did give me an opportunity to speak to our Director of Technology about this contract and the work that is entailed. This one is very simple. Varsity Technologies is partners with us in a variety of capacities, but this particular contract is for them to act as a third-party reseller of the Cisco license warranties. Essentially, Cisco doesn't sell directly to school districts. They will sell to Varsity Technologies, and Varsity Technologies then passes that through to us. And the license renewals that we purchase here are essentially service warranties for all components of our network. Our servers, our switches, our access points, those elements of the technology infrastructure that makes things work in technology. And this includes direct support. So we can call up Cisco and say, hey, we've got this issue. What do you think we should do? They may actually send somebody out to evaluate the equipment and look at it. But more importantly, what this does, it allows us access to any of the remote upgrades and patches that Cisco pushes out to purchasers of their equipment and then their licenses, so that remotely we can access things and bring them into our system to make them more secure. So that's what this contract is for.
Thank you for that, because I know at the CSBA conference, there was actually a seminar on cybersecurity. So when we were there, San Diego School District actually got hacked into. So it was pretty serious. And so they were warning all of us, like it's coming to all the districts pretty soon, that people are going to try to get into our networks. So were you able to find out the status of our network infrastructure? Are we doing well? Are we?
So far, we're doing well. I think Mr. Lauro can speak to that. We do also do some staff training and let staff know every so often we'll send out an email that looks like a phishing email that says click here. We're not at 0% of people clicking, but we're about half of what other school districts are finding in terms of employees who click. So half of that. So we're continuing to work with our staff to identify the types of emails, the email addresses you have to look out for before you respond or click on something, just to try to keep our network safe. And I think we discussed at some point, maybe last year, about some of the other measures that we've taken to protect our data. We do have data backups. We have a lot of our data is stored in a variety of places, so it's not easy to get all of our data and hold us hostage to that.
And to add to that, I spoke with Ms. Baroni recently. So we have our server, we have a backup server, and we've been entertaining the thought of potentially moving to the cloud and having another third-party administrator oversee our data. I think we're always trying to figure out what's coming and to try to get ahead of that. And we'll definitely, in the future sometime, after we do our infrastructure access point upgrades for our Category 2 project, think about, how we can secure our servers. And I think one thing we found out is, like, during emergencies and the power goes out, we only have a couple hours of battery where our servers that go out for Synergy and all the school sites and run our infrastructure can go out. And if that goes out, then it's not good. So we're just trying to figure out ways to, in times of emergency, to keep operations up and running for our staff and our students, and most importantly, our families.
Yeah, that sounds good, because I actually started thinking about it when I saw it on the consent agenda, because there were power outages going on. So that went through my mind. But I know that at some point you don't, or we wouldn't publicly say everything that we're doing, right?
No.
So I guess I'll ask some of these questions in a closed session.
Are there any other comments or questions? If not, I will take a motion.
Motion to approve the agreement with Varsity Technologies.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion was unanimous. Right, and we're going to move on to item 9E, bond projects update. Mr. Bill Heath, Director of Maintenance and Operations Construction Program, and Mr. Michael Laurel, Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, will present an update on the Measure I, U, and J bond projects.
Good evening. So, we're going to use this time to give a little bit of a history. This is not going to be a comprehensive history, but one that goes 11 years back for some of our most recent bond measures that we've undertaken here at Jefferson Elementary School District, along with the projects and looking forward to what's next in Measure J. So over the past 13 years, we've had 3 different measures: Measure I, Measure U, and Measure J. Measure I was passed in 2012 with a par amount of $67.5 million. Measure U was passed in 2018 with a par amount of $30 million. And as you all know, Measure J passed in 2022 with a par dollar amount of $45 million. I'm going to be going over, or Mr. Heath is here to go over Measure I and Measure U and the projects that have been completed. And I'll be going over Measure J in the future.
You go ahead and do that. So in 2012, we passed Measure I, and with that funding, the district was able to do district-wide solar panels and energy-saving projects, and also complete district-wide wireless upgrades. We also were able to do the TR policy to facilities improvement, which involved 19 new classrooms, a new multi-purpose room, library, and administrative office, and renovate 12 classrooms. The district also provided with that funding site furniture for the entire site. We were also able to do the district office asbestos removal, ADA upgrades, and technology improvements, and repave the parking lot as part of the ADA upgrades. We used Measure I funding to provide a new classroom wing for Fernando Rivera School and replace the roof for the entire campus that was already existing. Measure I funding also completed the TR policy and Susan B. Anthony turf field replacement. That field was 20 years old at the time. Security cameras district-wide were purchased with that funding. New play structures for Daniel Webster, Westlake, Woodrow Wilson, George Washington, Thomas Edison, and Garden Village schools. George Washington School had a heating system upgrade. Ben Franklin School, we replaced the gas line, the underground gas line that was failing, and completed a fencing and hard court resurfacing project. At Susan B. Anthony School, we also completed a re-roofing project and a complete fencing project, which made the campus secure. The district also used that funding to do landscape planning district-wide. And this was immediately prior to the to the drought cycle, which caused us to kind of back off on the landscaping. We did water sampling during the issue of the lead testing for the water. So district-wide, we sampled water to find out what lead levels we had, and we replaced any fixtures that where we found positive lead in the water. At Fernando Rivera School, we did a classroom wing and restroom wing, which was 4 classrooms and the attached restrooms. At the central kitchen, we replaced the walk-in freezer and did a parking lot repaving that allowed ADA accessibility to the kitchen. So here's some examples of, at FDR, you'll see in the light, you'll see the existing campus and then where we placed the new campus wing. And at Fernando Rivera, you'll see the existing campus and then where we placed the new wing. TR Policita turf field replacement. And the TR Policita Middle School replacement. So what you'll see there is the existing campus and then our replacement of a new administrative wing, multipurpose room, and classroom wings, and renovation of 3 of the existing classroom wings. At the central kitchen, as we talked about, we replaced the walk-in freezer with a freezer that has the ability for the forklift to drive in there. It's now accessible with equipment, whereas in the past, everything had to be taken in and out by hand. And then in 2018, the district passed Measure U. Measure U, we used the funding for Measure U to complete the MP Brown student drop-off area and office renovation and realignment, and do the fencing and playground project. This was part of the overall site requirement that we needed to do the workforce housing. We needed to kind of reverse the way MP Brown addressed the site and change where the playground was and where the student drop-off was. It also got our student drop-off off of the street and out of traffic to a drop-off that more aligns with the California Department of Education requirements for student drop-offs. Garden Village School, we also did the same procedure by doing a student drop-off that took students out of the street and allowed them to be dropped off in an appropriate drop-off area. At MH Tobias School, we completed a fencing and safety improvement project. That was just completed just this last summer. Woodrow Wilson School had a safety improvement project that encompassed fencing and on-campus safety and ADA accessibility. Fernando Rivera, we replaced the BARD units, which are BARD is a brand name for the units that are on the outside of portable classrooms that provide heating and air conditioning. So we replaced all of those at the existing portable classrooms at Fernando Rivera School. And we used part of that funding for the workforce housing project. So here you'll see the difference between Garden Village as it existed in the past and the Garden Village student drop-off area that allows, we actually built a pathway from one street to another that allows parents to drive in through Garden Village, drop their students off in a secure area, and drive out onto Park Plaza. The MP Brown student drop-off area, you'll see where the existing school had the playground to the east side of the school. We reversed that by putting the playground and the student areas to the west side of the school, doing the student drop-off on the east side of the school, and using a roundabout type configuration where traffic can continue to pass through, but that students get dropped off on the outside edge. And then we moved on to our workforce housing project, which is still in construction. These are a few shots of the actual construction and placement of the units as the project began. So we've made a lot of progress. We've been stopped by weather for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we've made a lot of progress prior to that. So in a period of about 20 days, we went from a site that had nothing but concrete there to a site that has 5 of the 6 buildings up to the 2nd floor levels. Okay.
So as you all know, we've passed Measure J in 2022, and we've done our Series A issuance. For our new board members, every time we pass a new bond measure, or the voters pass a new bond measure, what happens is we go out to get a new bond rating. Superintendent Vidalis and I went out to San Francisco, got a bond rating. They go out to the marketplace and sell those bonds to investors, and then we get the funds deposited in the county treasury. And then from there, what we have here is a proposed list of Measure J projects. As you are aware, Measure J passed on 2 main core principles, which is safety and security of our students. So at Daniel Webster, we are using the funding to get some playground resurfacing and some fencing and access control, as well as a student drop-off area to align with some of our other school sites that we've presented with Measure I and Measure U. Garden Village, some playground resurfacing. FD Roosevelt, replacing an aging play structure. At Fernando Rivera, we're using the funding for playground resurfacing, additional fencing and access control, as well as the student drop-off. At JF Kennedy, additional fencing and access control, as well as replacing an aging play structure. Similar to JFK, we're also doing replacing a play structure that is aging at MH Tobias, as well as Susan B. Anthony. Likewise, at Thomas Edison, we're doing fencing and access control and a student drop-off that is in the plans along with Fernando Rivera, as well as playground resurfacing. Similar to other sites, playground resurfacing at Westlake, as well as fencing and access control along with a student drop-off at Westlake. And similar thing to the maintenance yard and ensuring that, with recent break-ins that we're really securing that site and ensuring our employees are safe as well. The total cost of these proposed Measure J projects is $11.1 million. If you're aware, our Series A was $22.5 million, of which 11.1 paid off the certificates of participation, which was the loan we used to aid in building our workforce housing project. And also the cost of issuance of the bonds was about $270,000. Looks like the formatting got a little messed up, but with Measure I, it was 67.5 million, Measure U is 30 million, and Measure J, we have 45 million. Total bond funds rounding out to 142.5 million. Our estimated expenditures and commitments of these projected projects is 120 million, which leaves us with $22.5 million in Measure J. Do you have any questions?
Yes, I have a couple. So you said that you're doing playground resurfacing at some of the schools. So for Fernando Rivera and Thomas Edison, will that also include doing their fields?
Currently, we're doing playground resurfacing, but the actual field itself is a completely separate project. So I assume that you're talking about like a turf field or having the grass field turn into so that would be a separate project that isn't in that first series of projects.
Okay, and then what is the prediction completion time of these projects, as well as how many of these projects do you actually think we will finish?
So the completion time on projects, we currently have 2 projects that are already submitted to DSA, California State Department of Architecture, and those are the Thomas Edison, Fernando Rivera student drop-off area, and then the Daniel Webster student drop-off. And both of those encompass an outdoor learning area that we had previously submitted, so DSA is allowing us to add these other projects onto that outdoor learning area, so we don't have to resubmit. So currently, those are in the process, and I believe that we should probably be able to go out to bid those sometime, hopefully before the beginning of summer. They're not complicated projects. They're just it's just a matter of getting DSA's approval. And if that's the case, those two projects would probably be completed before the end of 2023. The other projects, the projects like resurfacing playgrounds and things like that, those are projects that we don't have to go out and do state approval for, and we could do those at the same time. The timeline that I have in mind currently is to complete all of those projects under Measure A in the next 16 to 18 months.
Just so you're aware, trustees, whenever we pass a measure and we have an issuance of the bonds, we have 3 years to spend those funds. So time is always of the essence. And that's something we work with our bond counsel on to make sure that in our reporting to the state that we're expending these funds in a timely manner.
All right, thank you for your presentation. Again, I'm just very glad to see some of these projects, especially since I know that student drop-off is one of the biggest issues. I'm sure you hear there are lots of reports of very angry, aggressive parents who, do something terrible and they call the school and we have to tell them to call the police just because it's that bad. So I'm very happy to hear that student drop-off is one of the most important things on the list. And then just a quick question for Bernie. I know you mentioned previously we were going to get a tour of the workforce, or you would offer a tour of workforce housing. Could you remind us of the timeline of when that would be possible?
Just contact me. I'll schedule it.
Thank you. No further questions.
Just a quick question about the solar panels. I think we may have gotten this answer before, but the solar panels, are they already paying for themselves? Are we saving money?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Where I don't know if they ever fully pay for themselves, but they certainly support the district's general fund. And likely you'll see, and we haven't decided yet to come to the board with that, but Series B of Measure J may include a project to upgrade the solar panels, since those were purchased and installed in 2012, 2013. They're coming to their life expectancy, which is about 15 years, Mr. Heath. So that may be one of the first projects from Measure I and one of the last projects with Measure J to span those 15, 16 years of lifespan.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah. Thank you for the presentation. And my question is about water testing. I noted that was part of Measure I, and I wanted to know how many years is that funded for? Is that a one-time thing? And how often is it required or safe to do the testing?
So water testing at the time that we did it was a result of all of the information that came out about, and I believe it was Flint, Michigan, about the lead in the water. The devices, the actual mechanical devices that are installed in structures, whether they're drinking fountains or whatever, have historically had a certain amount of lead in the solder in them. And so the past practice was that was the way they were built. So the district has replaced those all with the new lead-free systems. So none of our infrastructure that belongs to the district will contribute lead into the water. The city of Daly City that provides our drinking water provides the district with annual testing of the quality of the drinking water, and we see a report, and literally with just a phone call, we can get an up-to-date report at any point in time. the water that's introduced into the system. So we're not seeing any lead that we're getting through Daly City's water supply, nor are we seeing any introduction of any lead from the infrastructure of what this school district owns.
If there are no further questions or comments, I have one question. I'm actually going to ask this question for the community or parents that might be watching. How do we determine what projects to handle first or last, or what projects to handle at all? And I ask this because I know I've had people come up to me and say, well, this school needs this or that school needs that. Why does this school get it first and mine doesn't? How do we determine how those projects are determined and who gets to go first?
I can start with that. We do have a sense of which projects are more urgent because we've had break-ins or we've had incidents, and so some of the school sites, that's particularly around fencing, that's how those projects were determined. We can't do all the projects at the same time, so we do need to prioritize or at least order them in a particular way. As far as the student drop-off and student pickup, the simplest projects get done first because we want to make sure that we can move as many kids off the street onto campus and in the places where it can happen simply. That never was a part of our bond projects until we did TR Policita. And we said, goodness, look at the improvement in city traffic that happened by moving traffic off the street. And then, of course, there are all of the other schools that have big issues came to mind. And so that's how we're selecting those. There are some that are going to be tougher than others, and those require more time for planning and more time for community outreach. And some that are easy, like the MP Brown one became easy because we needed to do something to flip the school. So we did that one right away. I think that we do try to make sure that every school gets some attention. And I think we have. We've done that. One project that's not on there, because it's not going to be funded through bond, would be the George Washington fencing project, and also consider investigating how can we move traffic off the street for them as well. So that one's a little bit more complicated because the backside of their school is in the city of San Francisco. And that sidewalk is a San Francisco sidewalk. So we have to coordinate with a new city that we've never really needed to coordinate with. So that becomes a more complicated, but it will happen, but not with bond money. We have other funds to deal with that. So it's a complicated thing. And essentially, the district makes a recommendation to the board and the board votes on it. You vote, you'll vote on the plan. And then you'll vote on accepting the bid. And then you'll vote on all the change orders that result. And then you'll vote to accept the completion. So it is not a, I'm not going to say, it's not a hidden thing, but we do try to spread it out among different schools, taking the easy projects first, more difficult ones later, because those require more planning with the Department of State Architects. And then sometimes we postpone projects because we go out to bid and the project comes in at 4 times what we estimated. And we say, we can't do that right now. That's not good use of public money. Let's wait on that project until the price comes down.
Thank you.
One of the other things that we do there too is we collaborate with the Safe Route to Schools group, and they actually come out and will do an audit, and they do those on their schedule. As a matter of fact, we have an audit coming up for the Policita, TR Policita school. And so they'll come out and do an audit, and then we work with the city and or the county, depending on where the school is located at, to come up with a plan on how we're going to do a student drop-off and the other types of things as far as walk and bike to school. So we incorporate those also. We do that by collaborating with other agencies and on a site-by-site basis, and they work through that based on where they see the greatest amount of risk.
Perfect. Thank you. That's helpful. I also appreciate not seeing a change order in a while for workforce housing, so that's great. But I appreciate the presentation.
Don't speak too quickly.
I know. I was going to say I might jinx it. Oh no. But no, thank you for the presentation. That was very helpful.
President Jordan, can I ask one last
Yes,
question?
absolutely. Go
I'm
ahead.
going to emanate you right here. Next time that we have this presentation, is it possible to get it on paper so we can take notes?
Yeah, I realized that after I sat down and we started the meeting that I forgot to print them out. Yeah, I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning to go to Sacramento for the governor's budget and didn't get in until a little bit later. So sorry about that.
No, thank you very much, and thank you for attending that meeting.
All right. We're going to move on to item 11A. Retirement classified personnel. The administration recommends approval of the retirement request from the following classified employee and request an appropriate resolution be prepared commending her for her years of service with the district. Sandra Backlig, institutional assistant, PE, Garden Village, MP Brown, a date of hire August 29, 2006, effective January 31st, 2023. Are there any comments, questions?
I guess I'll just give one quick comment. I don't know Sandra personally, but if you are watching, thank you very much for your service. And we look forward to hearing from your endeavors in the future.
I would echo that and say congratulations on your retirement. And if there are no further comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
A motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. The next item on the agenda is item 11D, job description for Assistant Director of Maintenance and Operations. As a result of the previous analysis and identifying district maintenance and current operational needs with the proliferation of bond and construction projects, the administration recommends the creation of the Assistant Director of Maintenance and Operations position and the adoption of the attached job titles. The Assistant Director of Maintenance and Operations will plan, organize, control, and direct daily custodial and grounds maintenance operations and activities, establish and maintain custodial and grounds maintenance timelines and priorities, assure related activities comply with established laws, codes, regulations, policies, and procedures. Are there any comments or questions?
Do we have already someone in mind for this position? Are we promoting someone up or?
I can speak to that. So, Kurt, thank you very much, by the way. Appreciate it. Good evening, everybody. So currently, Mr. Heath's position, he is the Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Construction. Prior to that position being established back, I believe it was 2014, the position was Director of Maintenance and Operations. When, at the time, Mr. Young, who's since retired, moved into the role as Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Construction, the position of Director of Maintenance and Operations just went unfilled. We had a time when one of the maintenance techs worked, as we call it, out of class for a while, supporting more the operational work of the position. And as the bond and construction projects proliferate, for the agenda item, we need more support on the boots on the ground at the school sites. There's a lot, our schools are aging, and they need a lot of work and support. And so the idea was to modify the current position into an assistant director position. Much of the job description is similar to what it was before. So as with other classified job descriptions, the first step when you revise or create a new one is to have the board consider and take action on the job description, then the next step would be to bring it to the Personnel Commission. The Personnel Commission would then take action on the qualifications and pay range, and then we'd bring it back to the board. So the idea that for step one tonight, and then the next step would be to go to the Personnel Commission on the 7th of February, and then bring it back to the board at our 8th of February meeting. Currently, we don't have anybody in mind, as it were. We would put it out there certainly internally first, go through our general process of getting applications, getting an eligibility list. This is not a CSEA position, it is a management position. But again, it's just to kind of reconstruct, or no pun intended, the position that has just essentially been unfilled. And as you saw, there's a lot of future construction projects going on at least through 2025, just with the Series A projects. So we think this is something considering the needs of our sites.
Are there any other questions or comments? So I have a question. Because this was an unfilled position, I'm assuming that we do have the budget to, once this is, posted and the Personnel Commission comes up with whatever the salary range will be, that we have some cushion to be able to take on this position and whatever benefits that might come with it.
I was taking his nod as a yes, but I guess he wants the mic.
Yes, we do. And actually, part of this would be coming out of our 3%. So every fiscal year, 3% of our expenditures are calculated and put into a separate account called routine restricted maintenance. So every year, regardless of what happens, we always contribute 3% of our total expenditures into the maintenance, the routine maintenance of our buildings. And so this would be coming out of that account.
Perfect. Thank you. If there are no other comments or questions, I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the job description for Assistant Director of Maintenance and Operations.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That was unanimous. We'll be moving to item 12A, Board Policies, Administrative Regulations, September 2022 CSBA Board Policies Updates, first reading. The board will review and revise Board Policies, Administrative Regulations from September 2022 CSBA as stated in the first reading. Is there any discussion? Awesome. There is no discussion on this. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
And
That was-
before you move on to
Yes.
the next one, that was unanimous.
Yeah.
Finish your sentence.
Thank you.
Before Mr. Koo did pop by this week, and he says he approves this message that this is his last policy update packet that he reviewed.
Oh.
So he says that he agrees it should be passed. So just for you to know.
I appreciate that approval. So the next on the agenda is 12B, the other board policies, administrative regulations updates, first reading. The board will consider updating board policy 0415, equity, E1330, use of school facilities, AR 4154, 4254, 4354, health and welfare benefits, and AR 5141.21, administering medication and monitoring health conditions to include provisions for district procedures, practices, or changes. This will be the first board policy that myself and Trustee Sujisaka have reviewed together. So with that being said, are there any discussions, questions, comments on this one?
Yeah, I did have a question about when I was reading through this policy. So I think this is the one where we're updating to be able to administer I don't know how to say it. I guess
Anti-opiate?
yes. Okay. So that, do we know that we have a big issue with that in our district or issue at all? Do we have any cases of any of our students overdosing on opiates?
Certainly, we do not have any students that are, you would know that.
Okay.
But it is not an issue yet. We have heard from public health officials that fentanyl-laced opiates are in the community and that students and or adults within our school communities may be accessing some of those, which can easily lead to an overdose. This one is just being modified. We had not included the administration of naloxone or an anti-opiate just because our schools didn't have access to it. So we had struck that in a previous passage. But now the county, as well as the state, are considering programs where they will be supplying anti-opiates to school sites. And this policy will just allow school staff who volunteer to be able to use them when there is such an emergency, which often, within minutes of administering it can save a life and may be too long to wait for the fire department to show up.
I will also say that in my school district, we are currently doing the same thing. We actually are. And we are, of course, the staff has to be trained before administering it. And we're actually hosting a staff training. They also need to be CPR, first aid certified, to be able to get this training. So,
Are there any other comments or questions? I was just going to make a comment and say I appreciate us being proactive. A lot of times we're reactive. With COVID, we had no choice but to be reactive. And so being able to be proactive about this, I think, is helpful, not just for obviously protection, but just it's important for our community to know that we care. We want to anticipate the needs before they come. So with that being said, is there a motion on the table?
I'd like to motion to approve all the board policies.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. All right, we're moving on to board professional development, item 13A, board study session, CSBA 2022 annual education conference. Board members, Manufo Iga Anoa'i and Anthony Sujisaka will highlight some of their learnings as well as give a report about their attendance at the California School Board Association 2022 annual conference in San Diego from November 30th to December 3rd. Seeing as we only have one of those trustees here today, I'll have Trustee Sujisaka take this.
I will not need 20 minutes. All right, so I wish I didn't have to go after Trustee Jordan because she had so many good points to say about the conference. Again, one of my favorite sessions, as she said last time, was the one that she forced me to go to. I am very glad she forced me to go to it. Just as a brief reminder before I go into another couple of sessions I really enjoyed, it was a public speaker. She wrote a book. Again, I forget her name.
Tara Westover.
Tara Westover, yes. And so she wrote a book about her upbringing, how she had no formal education, and then she went on to get a doctorate and write a book. And so it's just a very inspirational speaker. She was very charismatic, very funny. And there were some sessions I did not always enjoy, but that was the one that really made me very glad I stayed through the whole conference. I did attend the conference from Aaron Rashba, Mr. Rashba and I, and Bernie and Sandy, not Sandra, why did I say Sandra? We all attended the new board member orientation at the beginning. I'm going to give that one to Mr. Rashba to speak to next time. What I wanted to speak about this time was my attendance at the Brown Act. I attended that one with Sandy McCulloch, who's in the back right over there. That one was one of the not only most informational sessions that I attended, but also one of the most entertaining. Being, a person with ADHD myself, I'm always very open about that, but then also I'm very open to my learning needs, and I know I need someone who's going to engage me as an audience member. and not just lecture to me. And they even opened this session with saying, like, for those of you who know us, they are presenters and they interact with each other. It's not just talking at you. They are talking with each other and you're kind of just there listening to them. So they were cracking a whole bunch of jokes, but then also going into serious how, like in general, board members should not be more than majority speaking about anything board member related, and they entertained our questions about, if we should even be, they recommend generally not us, congregating together because it could look like we're doing that. And just, they gave a lot of insight that as a new board member, I very much appreciated. And then there were a couple other sessions. I know there was a luncheon with a speaker, and she was the representative of a company that I think it was some sort of digital whiteboard company. And so the presentation on that was pretty entertaining. The food was good too. But yeah, I think that's about all I have to say. I mean, I have so many more things I want to say, but I'll leave it at that.
Are there any other comments or questions from other trustees on? Perfect. We'll be moving to item 14, persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issues that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes. Do we have any speaker cards this evening? All right, seeing as there's not, we're going to move to item 15, governance team members' comments, reports, and board meeting reflection. And this time I will start to my right.
I do not have any major reports. I think it was a very good meeting, very informative. I loved the presentation from the Woodrow Wilson students, really inspired by that, and just very informative. Thank you for the information on the school dashboard, on the school facilities, and so many other topics that we discussed tonight. Thank you.
I just want to say congratulations to Marjorie H. Tobias Elementary School for being awarded a distinguished school, recognized as a distinguished school. We will be going down there in a couple weeks or a few weeks to Los Angeles. Sorry. And then just congratulations to all our new employees in the school district.
Sorry for interrupting you there. I have one comment and then I have a report back from the Educational Housing Corporation meeting. So my comment is to congratulate Deanna Yan for being promoted. I wish we had pulled that one aside. Thank you for letting us know we can do that. But yeah, so I wanted to congratulate her as she got promoted from school admin to a different, to HR specialist. So congratulations to Deanna Yan. And then my quick report back from the Educational Housing Corporation. We, as you heard, we went over the policies of our group. We got to meet each other for the first time. They provided snacks. And we reviewed our bylaws. We determined our schedule, and we did the election of officers. Perfect.
I don't have many comments outside of thanking everyone for being here this evening. Also, I echo Trustee Rashba's comments about Woodrow Wilson. My favorite part of any meeting is when the students come and present to us. The reason why we are all on this board is because of those students. And so it's always good to see that they're learning and they're engaged and they're passionate about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I want to tell everyone to have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the dry weather. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting.